This episode of Lawyers Tell All is brought to you by the Intake Academy. Are you ready to convert more callers to qualified cases, rapidly qualify good cases, and transform unqualified prospects to advocates for your firm, whether you're able to handle their case or not? Visit www.intakeacademy.com and discover how to cement relationships with more of your ideal clients. Get them to commit to you and send you more referrals than you ever thought possible. Welcome to the Lawyers Tell All podcast, where Chris Mullins, the preeminent sales and communications consultant in the legal industry, shows you how it looks through lawyers' eyes. Here, innovators in the trenches provide powerful insights that help you connect with new clients, handle the sometimes harsh realities of the legal profession, and embrace the mindsets needed to succeed. Be sure to visit our website at www.lawyerstellall.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, lean in, tune in, and let's take a deep dive.
Hello, everyone. It's Chris Mullins with Lawyers Tell All, and today I am interviewing attorney Jason Melton. Jason, tell everybody about. Hey,
how are you?
Super. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on here.
Yes. Yeah. Well, tell everybody who you are.
Well, my name is Jason Melton. I'm an attorney in Florida. I grew up in Texas and made my way down to Florida as a prosecutor originally. Worked down in Miami, which was a really terrific place to be a prosecutor. Anyone in law school who's watching this, if you just want a crazy idea, go work for the public defender's office or the state attorney's office in South Florida. Could be Dade, could be Broward, could be Palm Beach. I promise you, every week will be like watching a movie. You'll see amazing things, hear amazing things, and the different types of lawyers you will see and judges will be things you'll remember for the rest of your life. So that was better training than law school, frankly, working down there. And then shortly thereafter, my partner and I, who was also a prosecutor in Miami, we started a law firm on the west coast of Florida, just north of Tampa, in a town called Spring Hill, which is technically not a city or a town. It's a postal code in a county called Hernando County, which is kind of an area where people refer to as Heaven's Waiting Room. It's an older area. It's getting younger, but it's still pretty older. And so, Spring Hill, Newport Richey, Brooksville, the Villages, Ocala, this is where we call home. And from there, we practice, obviously, any type of criminal defense because of our background in criminal law. And then also do a lot of personal injury and wrongful death. And we've been doing that informally since about 2006 and more formally since 2009. And that's been awesome. We've had a lot of great cases and great results. But along the way, I've learned a lot about the practice of law. And in the last few years, opened up a company helping law firms with the staffing needs. And we talk about that a little bit. But that's, in a nutshell, that's who I am.
So how did this whole staffing business start? What happened?
So basically, having nothing to do with the pandemic, but around 2018, 19, I was running into this sort of like turnstile with certain positions in my firm. I could not fill them permanently. I had a good core of like 15 people, but there was these 3 or 4 slots, intake and reception. It felt like there was nobody. It didn't seem like it was hard to find people who were interested in a career. So it was hard to find people who wanted to start out from the bottom in a industry they didn't know anything about and learn and really lean into something. And I think some of that had to do with the economy from the previous decade. We had a bad recession. There were some different things going on. Tech was changing the way young minds work. There's lots of things. And I thought, gosh, there's got to be another way. And because I grew up in South Texas, I reached out to some friends of friends and asked someone for help in Mexico, thinking, hey, maybe I can find someone who could work remotely. And I've been working remotely for years because we work all over Florida. It's impossible for me to be in an office, the right one each day for each client. So in a nutshell, that means that I don't necessarily have to be in an office, right? Because if I can't be in the right one, I could be in any one, right? So I'd already gotten used to this. I'm like, I can find someone maybe to do this. And I remember that first conversation. I reached out to someone who's now my business partner, and I said, hey, I want to find 2 paralegals. What do you think we could do this? He said, sure. And I said, okay, great. Can you get me 2 paralegals? And he said, why would you want paralegals? I'm like, because that's the job I want to fill. He's like, don't do that. Let's get lawyers to fill the job as paralegals. I'm like, is that possible? He's like, sure. He's like, and because of the way the relative value of the economy in Mexico, like it's not that big a difference in cost. And I'm like, let's do it. So we tried it. And as it turned out, when I started doing it, it was the end of 19, beginning of 20, when I started interviewing people to fill these slots. And lo and behold, COVID happens.
Yeah.
So I ended up with this opportunity to try this new thing out during a time when, candidly, that's about all I could do anyway.
Right. Yeah.
And so it was just like a perfect timing, and it just happened that way. And I brought on 2 lawyers to act as like case managers and support staff for my already American staff. And I brought on a graphic designer and a video editor. And it was really amazing. It kind of transformed the way we marketed and transformed the way we process cases.
Yeah.
And I learned so much too about not only people in general, but my own staff. I was incredibly fearful of them feeling threatened by having folks in Mexico work with us on the cases that they had already been assigned to. And especially if those people in Mexico were people of higher qualifications and education than some of my staff in America, I thought, this may not go well.
Yeah.
And it was the exact opposite. They were thrilled to have these folks help them and cases with them. And they've become such an important part of our office. They celebrate holidays with us, and they're incredibly team-oriented. And I always tell people it's kind of like getting in a time machine. You have people who are interested in a career, and they show up on time, and it's just a different mentality. And who knows, maybe the next generation of kids will be like, a better version of us in that regard and be different than this generation we're dealing with now. I don't know, but for the time being, it does appear that we've got a little bit of a gap in terms of those priorities. And I do think that having a pandemic on top of a recession, sprinkled with a lot of reliance on tech and less human interaction, has created this sort of cauldron that we're in now, where we're dealing with the consequences of it. And one of those is, I think, people are less interested in careers and putting in your time and this sort of thing. And so it affects the labor pool,
So I have a question for you. Okay, the folks in Mexico that you were talking about that at your firm, did they teach your in-house team anything?
Interesting you bring that up. So I think the most important thing that they taught my staff is don't assume the limits of people's capabilities based on what you think they know or what you think they can do. And that includes me.
Yeah.
And the best example of that is when I started doing this, I thought the best I could ever get from someone, even a lawyer in Mexico, was to be like a paralegal too, someone who could support my paralegals in the United States, right? It never occurred to me that they would be capable of handling a file from inside of the office themselves. But more importantly, it never dawned on me that they could interact with my litigation staff and prepare pleadings and do discovery. And, in large part, many of them, they're the smartest people in my office. And I never would have thought that, which, is, I take all the blame you want to give me for that, but I had just not done that. And I think one of the best parts about opening yourself up to a process like this is that these people, the worst thing about virtual assistants is that the only thing that businesses think about is, oh, cheap alternative. And when it's done right, the cost is honestly the very last thing you ever think about. And my experience has been, since doing this personally, we decided to make a company out of it called Regents Remote Services. And the clients, the law firm clients that we have, they bonus the people all the time. It's clearly not about the money. But initially when they all get started, the conversations are all about money. And ultimately it ends up not being about the money. It's just about the work. And when you have people who care about the work and care about the results, and they're invested in the company, invested in the law firm, wanting to see them get good results, have happy clients, and then interested in a career and having longevity with someplace, then you get better results. And it's obvious once you lean into it and train them and make them a part of your culture, it happens.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was alluding to is, besides what you said, is I feel like Americans, they don't really want to work as hard as, people like in Mexico, for example.
Well,
and that I was wondering is, like, through their behavior and their performance, what directly or indirectly have they taught your in-house team?
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is the core of people who I didn't have a problem with before I had labor issues, they work very hard, and they always have. So I don't know that they necessarily needed that lesson or took that lesson to heart. But I will tell you, when we do bring on new people in the States, and I do see some of this stuff that you're referring to, it does reassure me, well, I know we don't have to put up with that, because we have people who will put in a full day's work, and be very concerned about the outcome. And, we've had people who bring their laptops home and want to make sure something gets done and not tell us, because they want the task to get done, whatever it is, because they're worried about their reputation within the job. And that's why I always talk about being in a time capsule or going back in time, because they interview like it's 1992. They show up to work like it's 1992. They speak to you like it's 1992. And, I'm not here to, this is not a anti-American thing. This is just where we're at right now. And the people who usually take these jobs for us, they don't share the same sort of belief structure that we did when we were in the workforce. I remember I got to every job I ever had about an hour and a half to 2 hours early. For the first 3 or 4 years I was in the workforce, like almost religiously, because I wanted to get ahead of everything, because I was always afraid of losing my job. I knew it was competitive. I knew a lot of other people wanted that job. And, I knew that I couldn't control being the smartest person in the room or being the most handsome or whatever, but I was never going to let someone tell me that I couldn't show up on time or I couldn't prepare. I mean, that's free, right? And we learn this in sports. You can put it there's no limit on how much you want to prepare, and showing up on time and getting dressed on time and knowing where you're supposed to be. And I talk to my kids about this all the time with sports. That's the fights I get into with my kids about sports. It's never about how they played or what happened on the field. It's just, were you ready to go to the field? Did you have your bag together? Did you have all your clothes together? Did you know where your goggles were? Because that stuff is, it costs nothing to be 100% prepared. And that's the biggest thing. These people that come to work, they're ready to work. They're not, we all know, you get there at 8:30 and you don't start working until 9:15 because you're talking to people. That's not the case with these folks.
Yeah. So, are the attorneys the most popular position that you help fill at law firms through Regents?
Yeah, it's still the most popular position is using the Mexican lawyer to fill a legal assistant role. And that's an interesting position because, like I said, it could be someone who's just filling filling requests for updating medical bills and records and helping out with some demands, or it could be somebody drafting pleadings and doing discovery and litigation. That has a lot to do with how long you've trained them and you've worked with them and you've built up trust with them. It also has to do with what their skills and backgrounds are back. I often tell people, like, don't get trapped in this idea that, like, you get a VA and it's just like a black box and you put it on the shelf and it just does X, Y, Z. These are human beings.
Yeah.
Human beings. You have to, have relationships with them. They need to trust you. You need to trust them. You have to teach them things. You have to train them. And some of them run real fast and some of them run slower, but run longer. Like, they're all different, just like anybody you'd hire. No different. And so I think the employers that do it right really get to know their staff and figure out what their strengths are. And like, I have some people who are just fantastic on the phone. And so I migrate their work towards phone work, right? And other people who are just terrific research and writers, and they're not that great on the phone. They're not that personable on the phone, but they're really good writers. And I can depend on them to do research and writing really quickly. And so you migrate them to those types of tasks. And so it's not a one-size-fits-all thing type of deal. And it shouldn't be, but sometimes people need a little reminding of that, which, that happens.
Yeah. And the thing that I'd like to remind everybody of is one of my clients, maybe it was maybe a couple of weeks ago, was doing a training class, and they have a lot of virtual assistants from the Philippines. And I mean, they work in different departments. It's not just, some of it's intake, but others like legal assistants and paralegals and all of that. And I was doing a training class with this whole group, and they were talking about how they feel disrespected by clients that call the office, that they talk down to them, or they're like, well, where are you located? You're not there, and you're in a call center and all of that. And so they also, the other side of the fence, they deal with that.
Yeah.
They deal with that.
Yeah. And so, like, the call center aspect of what we offer, intake specialists, if you will, people who can sign up cases, but also just deal with reception, right? It's a great usage for any law firm to get people who are basically overqualified to work on the phones.
Yeah.
I always tell the story. There's a lawyer we work with in Connecticut, and he hired a really, really bright woman who was an oral surgeon, if you can imagine. Surgeon. She stopped being a surgeon to answer his phones. And she's like, I like the pace better. I like working from home. And the pay is actually better than I'm making as an oral surgeon. And and she's, as far as I know, still there. And she's very nice. And so when you're able to hire people who are frankly better educated and better qualified to do certain tasks, if handled correctly, you should end up with a better product. And for call centers, for an intake staff versus using like a call center, I always tell people, when you engage with a call center, like, in LA or Chicago or Dallas, whatever, the very best they're ever going to do for you is on day one. Like, by definition, it can never get better. Wow. Because there's more of them than there are of you. You're never going to have the same person answer the phone. They're reading off a script. You can change the script, but it's not going to feel any better. When you hire your own intake staff, they work with your office. They are basically part of your staff, and they have a vested interest in the outcome of the case because they work in the firm. And you can hear it in your voice, and you can hear it in their interest and getting you to the right person, making sure you're taken care of, right? And when you train and you keep those types of people together as a collective working on your behalf, that experience is, it's second to none. The call center experience is what it is, and I understand it's a necessity, but I can tell you, my office, we leaned on it way too heavy for too long.
Yeah. Well, I guide my clients. I mean, the best thing is if you have your own team, like, in the office with you, but that's not always possible. Yeah. And so don't have a call center, don't have an answering service, whatever label you want to put on it, just hire your own virtual people, and that's what they do.
Yeah. Like, for my office, I have a senior lawyer that I brought over from the customs office at the airport, and she supervises the group and also takes calls. And then we have 4 what they call teleperformance type people, folks that have worked in intake and in call service industries before. And I interviewed like, I don't know, maybe 15 people for the 4 slots, but Regents, pre-screened probably 100 people to get me those 15 people to interview, and made sure that they were of such quality that were worth interviewing. It's one of the things that we've worked really hard on at Regents is pre-screening people for that interview process. It's not like you're just interviewing anybody who said they wanted the job, but we go through and make sure they have proper English skills. If we know the job is going to require a lot of phone work, we work real hard to make sure that their accents are not too thick. And if they are, we find other spots for them. But, for phone work, you were talking about the way callers behave. And certain parts of the country, they just don't tolerate it.
Yeah.
And you think in Florida, it wouldn't be a big deal. But as you go into Central Florida and North Florida, that's a little bit more like Alabama than it is like Florida. So you have to kind of deal with some of those sensitivities to accents. But yeah, I mean, I love those folks. And because our main office is in Monterrey, Mexico, as opposed to Mexico City or something like this, or even more so Manila in the Philippines, you can go. I think there's 27 direct flights into Monterrey every day. So I go down every quarter to visit my staff, and work with them and chat with them. And, it's a great process, I think.
Yeah. And so, primarily, the different positions that you fill is like the attorney one.
Sure. So you've got attorneys, or, people don't have to hire attorneys. They could hire legal assistants, or college graduates who are like clerks to do some of those same, if it had a very narrow task for them. And we have, of course, the intake specialists, graphic designers, like doing all your Facebook and Instagram stuff, video editing. Some people know me from Instagram. All those videos that we do, including day in the life videos and those types of things, I couldn't do any of those, and I don't have someone on staff. I'm not going to pay like an American like digital marketing company. They'll just crush it with fees. So we hire someone full time through Regents. We also have physicians on staff whose full-time job is to review and create reports of medical records. So for people who have like practices like workers' comp or Social Security, that's extremely valuable. What other positions? Folks who need programmers, like if they're doing complicated tasks with computers or building out systems, things like that, we can get folks like that. SEO management, social media management. We have folks like that. So there's a lot of positions we can fill. Nurse practitioner is another one. There's accounting. Like really, there's really no limit to what position we can fill anything. We had someone request a part-time COO. And I'm like, well, let's see, we'll try it out. The folks that asked me to do it were from the Boston area. And this happened just last week. If you could believe it, we found somebody who had graduated from Harvard.
Oh, wow.
Not even kidding. He graduated from Harvard. Yeah, he was an undocumented student who went back to Mexico, and he graduated from Harvard. And so, like, really, there's just so many different things. Like, you talk about like learning things. Like that was a request for a position I never would have thought of. Somebody would have asked for, and then the type of person we found, I was like, this is so strange. And Mexico's really. The country is so large. I don't think people appreciate how big it is. And it's an exciting country. The economy is moving fast right now, and virtual work is becoming one of the largest sectors of the economy. That's just in the last 10 years. And I think it's going to continue to grow, especially as you see higher minimum wages in different states, different overtime rules being passed, and then obviously with the, let's say, enthusiasm for careers from some of the younger people. I mean, I think this is going to continue.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. I'm just curious. I was always wondering the name Regents. How'd you come up with that name, Regents?
It's a funny story.
Okay.
So we, like, one of the things that we were always concerned about when we started the business was there are people in America who have really strange opinions of Mexicans with nothing to base it on.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, let's sort of like turn it on its head and make it about something else. I'm like, but the same people who have strange opinions about Mexicans, they have also strange and undeserved opinions of English people. And I'm like, all right, so let's make our coloring purple and gold, which sounds very English. And we started looking at other English words, and Regents came up. I'm like, all right, we'll call it Regents. And that was it. I mean, it was really just it's strange. Like, people are like, well, we're okay with hiring in India or the Philippines because it's super cheap, or India because they're super smart. And they think like somehow there aren't amazing professionals in Mexico. And I'm like, well, let's just change the way we look on paper to maybe move that dial just a little bit. It just takes people a couple seconds to think about it, but there are a lot of strange, I think, opinions of Americans about Mexicans. And having grown up in the South Texas, and thanks to Ancestry.com, finding out that my tree extends into New Mexico anyway,
Cool.
I was like super excited to do this. And it's been interesting, the different things I've found out doing this business. But yeah, it's been great. I love the people, and I love helping folks. And because I'm a lawyer, I think I can troubleshoot law firms' issues pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's amazing. Okay, so the last question I have for you, and to make sure you share whatever you want everybody to know, is what are some ideas on how the law firm can bring the virtual team to life in the office?
Okay.
Part of that office.
Sure. So, I mean, I think the first thing is if you're going to do any of this type of virtual work, you want to make sure you have your case management system on some sort of cloud network. I've had people call me and they really want to do it, and they've got like an intranet type of thing. And I'm just like, these people are thousands of miles away. You want them to be able to work off the cloud. You guys can share. So, make sure you have a good case management system. But I think like little tools, like first thing is when we bring people on is, get them some merch. Let them feel the pride of working for you. Because trust me, they're excited. They're working for an American law firm. Like, that's an exciting accomplishment. And they want to feel, they have so much pride in it, and they want to wear that T-shirt, and they want to use that pen, and this stuff's important to them. So get it to them. I know it's silly to you, but like, just get it to them. I promise you, it'll mean a lot to them.
Yeah.
When you have parties for like people's birthdays or lunch and learns, or anything like that, include them. I know it doesn't really make any sense to include them. They can't even eat the pizza. Just include them. And if you want, order food for them.
I was going to say,
same time. Yeah. What does it matter?
Yeah.
It means so much to them to do that. I think the other thing is, and if you go to our website, Regents RS for Regents Remote Services.com, we offer 3 books for free. The first one is how to interview people. The second is how to onboard them and train them. And the third is how to supervise them. And that's for anybody. They're free. So even if you didn't want to use our company and use someone else's company, or do it yourself, I think the books would be helpful. But I think, the biggest takeaway for virtual assistants is over communication. It can't be said enough. If you have staff in your office and you feel like you can meet with them, once a week and stop by and chat at their desk a couple times a day, well, you have to do more than that for the person thousands of miles away in a closet somewhere, trying to really work really hard for you and trying to feel a closeness to you and a connection to you because they want to feel loyal to you. And the easiest way to do that is through trust. And they need to talk to you. They need to get feedback. You need to set up processes for how they can raise their hand and ask for help.
Yeah, exactly.
Have people, because they're not going to have the benefit of, hey, Tina, when you're finished doing your coffee, can I ask you something? They're not going to have the benefit of conversations at the water cooler, at lunchtime, even overhearing other people have how many times have you been at work and you've heard other people have conversations that you're not a part of, that answer the question of the thing that you were working on, right?
Right. Yeah.
They don't get the benefit of any of that. It's very, very hard to work in this environment, which says a lot about them, frankly, that they're able to achieve what they are able to in that environment. But that's why they need that sort of framework. Yeah, they need to be able to raise their hand. They need to have safe places to go talk to people. They need to have one-on-ones with supervisors. They need to know what the supervisors are looking for. How are they being evaluated? What's important to supervisors? All those things. And through constant supervision and over communication, much like you would a child, frankly, you go through everything with them. Over time, you're going to build a rock star who's going to run through brick walls for you. Really, really and truly.
Yeah. I mean, some of the things that I see, I'll just throw in would be your websites. Put their pictures with everybody else.
Yeah. I make a big deal out of introducing everybody to the staff. Like I spend part of my training is I go through, here's this person, here's what this person does. I work them through sort of like the corporate framework of the company. And if you had an issue with this is the person you would go to. You wouldn't email these three. This is the one you'd go to, right? And getting them, the lawyers and the other staff, I set them up for Zooms during the week as well, so they can actually talk to these people. And it's super, super valuable. Totally agree with you.
Yeah. Because I see the attorneys on there. Sometimes intake is on there. Everybody should be there, but also your virtual team have their pictures. It's like not really a good idea to not have their pictures on there. That's sends a really bad message.
Oh, not to have the virtual team on your website? Well, I don't put my staff on my website at all.
The firms that do, they should have.
I agree with you. Yeah, that I agree with you. If you were going to put your staff on the website, then I would say put your virtual team on the website also.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you don't.
If you don't, that's fine. But then the other thing is, couldn't people just have like the virtual team has certain hours or certain days where their screen is on and they're actually working, like in the office area too, like the team in house is sitting there working and they can see the virtual team on the screen and
I see what you mean.
Yeah, the virtual team can see them, and
that's why I think like the lunch and learns are really helpful. Because they're all working together and talking together and chatting, and I think the cameras need to be on not just during the learning part.
Yeah, all the time.
They actually need to be on when they're eating and they're talking and they're talking about how somebody's son got drunk at a party or whatever. Like this is how they get tied into your community because they learn about like the big game this weekend. Or the scandal on the television because a newscaster crashed his car or whatever. Like, early on in training of virtual assistants, I tell them what newspaper to start reading because I want them to know where they work. It helps them with their phone calls. It helps them talk to clients. It helps them with all sorts of things that they say, oh, that's Super Bowl weekend. Well, listen, if they're not up to date on what's going on, they may not appreciate that Super Bowl is kind of a big deal. Or that the Super Bowl is in Tampa and your office is in Tampa, right? There's all sorts of things that could come up. So the earlier and more often that you allow them into your culture and into your inner workings of your staff, everything gets better. So I totally agree.
Wonderful. It's so good to see you. Is there any last words for everybody?
No, just anybody who's looking to maybe go a different route with labor in your office with staffing. You want to try something out, just call me or email me. I'm always available. There's nothing, there's no bad questions. And if I can help you, I'm happy to refer to somebody who can, but there's lots of different ways to do this work. And I've been in this business a long time. And sometimes people call me and we come up with ways to restructure their office and hire someone. But I'm happy to help folks. I've been around this stuff for a while, so I think I'm pretty helpful.
Yeah, no, that's great. How can folks get in touch with you?
So you can email me at jmelton@regentsrs.com, or you can just go to our website at regentsrs.com, and there's a form fill there you can put in, and you can also get our free ebook. I think right now book 1, the interview process is up, and soon the 2 and 3 will be up there. Like I said, those are free. Yeah. And I'll be happy to call you back and talk about whatever we need to talk about.
Well, Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's great
Thanks
to
for having me, Chris.
together, Jason.
Yeah, and I'll see you
Pilma.
next month at Pilma.
Yes, a couple of weeks, I think.
Awesome. And if you happen to watch this after Pilma, I had a great time, and it was really good to see you, Chris.
Yeah, it was nice to see you.
Yeah.
Thank you for throwing me some softballs while I was doing the intake panel.
I'll be happy to do that.
All right. Well, listen, so long, everybody. Lawyers Tell All. We'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Lawyers Tell All, where Chris Mullins takes you on a journey with lawyers in the trenches who show you the realities of what it takes to succeed in this chaotic, crowded, ever-changing profession. Remember to visit our website at www.lawyerstellall.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on Lawyers Tell All.